Every great game has its highs and the moments that stick with us long after the credits roll. But even the best of the best can sometimes stumble with mandatory sections that feel completely out of place, painfully paced, or just downright irritating. These are the parts that end up hampering the quality of the experience with such baffling design choices. From clunky vehicle segments to forced stealth missions and unexpected difficulty spikes, here are 10 awesome games that still manage to frustrate players with totally off-putting mandatory sections, no matter how iconic the rest of the journey was. Mass Effect 1 Mako segments. Mass Effect's first outing laid the foundation for what would end up becoming one of the most beloved sci-fi RPG trilogies of all time, but even those who swear by the franchise will tell you that the Mako segments are easily the game's most off-putting mandatory sections. Now, on paper, cruising across alien planets in a six-wheeled all-terrain tank sounds like a thrilling opportunity to explore strange landscapes and uncover hidden secrets. But in execution, the driving experience turns into a bumpy nightmare in the face of weird controls and awkward handling. The Mako handles like a bouncy toy through and through, ricocheting off the slightest hill and sliding around at every slope. It also doesn't help that most planets you explore are barren, with little variety between them and the enemy encounters present within. And when mission objectives force you into these segments repeatedly, it becomes painfully clear they were more ambitious than polished. They can break the narrative flow, drag the pace down, and leave anyone dreading the next time the game says, "Time to deploy the Mako." Spider-Man PS4 Stealth MJ segments. Spider-Man on PS4 nails the fantasy of swinging across towering skyscrapers as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, stopping crimes mid-flight and facing a gallery of memorable supervillains with flashy acrobatics. But then it suddenly yanks away your powers and drops you into sections where you take control of MJ for some stealth sections. Now, the idea of playing Mary Jane as an investigative journalist is admirable from a narrative standpoint, but the execution leaves much to be desired. These missions strip the infectious freedom of controlling Spider-Man, leaving you with sections that are overly dependent on trial and error sneaking, often turning what should be tense investigative sequences into frustrating stop and start segments.
Control. How's it looking? Convoy gonna be ready? 5x5. Soon as boss gives the word, get Michael's moved to the new safe house.
The transition from soaring across skyscrapers to hiding behind crates is so sharp that it derails the momentum, making it such a frustrating time. They're actually not terrible in concept, but as mandatory missions sprinkled throughout an otherwise fast-paced game, they end up feeling like unwelcome interruptions that break the superhero rhythm rather than enriching it. Red Dead Redemption 2 Guarma. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best written games by Rockstar, combining an emotionally charged narrative with an open world that feels living and breathing in more aspects than one. But it's not absolutely devoid of any demerits at all. The redemption arc of Arthur Morgan is quite compelling from start to finish, but in the middle lies the infamous Guarma chapter, which sees our band of misfits stranded on an island. This is a stretch of almost 2 to 3 hours, which subjects you to endless shooting gallery missions after another, with little to no narrative significance, and it is easily one of the most irritating parts of the entire game. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Tailing Missions. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is one of the best games in this long-running genre, and the setting is worth seeing through to the end. There's no shortage of high-octane naval fights against hunking behemoths that are decked with all sorts of cannons and flame barrels. And the assassination missions are also great, with plenty of set pieces and emotional fights sprinkled in between for good measure. But somewhere between the good stuff lies the dreaded tailing missions that can be obnoxiously stretched out in Black Flag. You could end up walking for minutes on end, only to be spotted out of nowhere or losing track of your target, and just the simple act of walking can also turn out to be quite frustrating when the primary mode of parkour is just so snappy and fun. Max Payne Blood Trail Dream Sequences. Max Payne tells us the tragic story of, well, Max Payne, who embarks on exacting revenge against those who wronged his family. The adventure takes us through the gritty criminal underbelly of New York, or more appropriately, Noir York, and it's a fun-fueled ride with plenty of high-stakes gunfights and encounters set against the backdrop of memorable locations. But one particularly frustrating moment stands out, where you have to navigate a dreamlike void with blood trails marking the path. and you must find the source of some ominous cries. And you can always fall down from the trails, or you could just end up running in circles, which can be quite off-putting. Dark Souls 1: Tomb of the Giants. From Software's breakout hit Dark Souls is one of the most influential games of recent memory that have come to birth an entire genre, but there are an equal number of awkward design decisions and levels that are absolutely frustrating instead of tricky or even challenging. Chief among them is Tomb of the Giants, where you have to navigate a tricky tomb filled with towering skeletons that regenerate, are on the lookout from a distance with archers, some lie hidden from plain sight with huge swords, and if all that doesn't sound too bad, you have to do it with almost zero light, with several slippery ledges along the way. Of course, there are some items that make it easier with more lighting, but we sure as heck didn't know that our first time around. Halo 2 Arbiter levels. Halo 2 is remembered as a bold sequel that expanded the universe in meaningful ways, but even the truest of fans admit that the Arbiter levels are the lowest points in the otherwise flawless adventure. The narrative justification is strong, and the element of surprise was definitely there, but the gameplay tone is drastically different, which can be quite off-putting once the novelty of playing as a new character drowns down. Instead of bombastic firefights and explosive set pieces, the Arbiter missions often lean into plotting platforming sections, invisible enemies, and repetitive objectives that can test your patience and not your skills. It's not that they're outright bad, but being forced away from Master Chief when things were just ramping up made these sections feel like long and borderline unwanted mandatory detours in an otherwise tight and exhilarating campaign. Mafia 1 Race Mission. Mafia 1's infamous race mission has practically become a piece of gaming history at this point, and it definitely deserves a spot on this list. It sticks out like a sore thumb in a game that otherwise excels at grounded storytelling and atmospheric mob drama. For hours, players are eased into a slow-burning narrative, only to suddenly be tossed into a brutally difficult street race with a Formula-style car that handles kinda like a soap bar on wheels. One small mistake can send you spinning off and crying for dear life, and the absence of any checkpoints doesn't make things any easier. Add to that the stiff controls and the long lap count, and it turns into a test of endurance rather than a showcase of skill. It's a massive tonal shift that feels out of place for a game so rooted in realism, and because it's a mandatory mission, many players found themselves stuck for hours, restarting over and over again just to push the story forward. GTA Vice City Helicopter Mission. Grand Theft Auto is a game that's all about embracing freedom and wreaking havoc in open environments in any way that you like. So when Rockstar snaps that freedom away from you and locks you in the driver's seat of an RC helicopter, it can become a very frustrating time indeed. And that's just what happens with GTA Vice City, where you come across a mission titled Demolition Man, which sees our protagonist Tommy Vercetti trying to demolish a building by placing some bombs at set points throughout the construction site. There are armed goons roaming around the construction site, there's a timer ticking every time, and the flight controls aren't the most convenient, and all of it comes together to make this mission a really frustrating time. Quite a number of players just couldn't get past this mission and ultimately ended up quitting the main quest altogether, and if you're one such player, we hear your frustrations. Batman Arkham Knight Tank Sequences. Batman Arkham Knight delivered some of the most polished combat and storytelling, which could make it a fitting finale to a great franchise, but its insistence on turning the Batmobile into a tank and making it the centerpiece of multiple mandatory missions remains one of its biggest missteps. Fans expected high-speed chases and stylish urban traversal, but instead, they found themselves locked into repetitive drone battles that disrupts the pacing every time they appeared. The Arkham games are undoubtedly at their best when Batman relies on stealth, gadgets, and fluid combat, but these tank segments strip away that familiar identity in favor of mechanical shooter-style arenas that feel completely out of sync with the Dark Knight's usual methods. The sheer frequency of these sequences turns what could have been a novel addition into a tedious slog that ends up hampering the experience. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.